Good morning, everyone, and welcome to NYSE TV Live. I'm Kristen Schiller here in studio at the New York Stock Exchange. Well, the pre-Thanksgiving surge on Wall Street continued on Tuesday as the Dow and the S&P 500 ended the session with record closes, even after President-elect Donald Trump had threatened to impose tariffs on imported goods from Mexico, Canada, and China. Well, in other news that we're following as geopolitics is in focus for traders, President Biden announced yesterday afternoon that Israel and Hezbollah have agreed to a U.S. brokered ceasefire in Lebanon. That ceasefire officially took effect at 4 a.m. local time this morning, with President Biden saying that the deal is intended to definitely end the war between the two sides. We got an action-packed day on tap here at the Stock Exchange, as you see behind me, so let's take a look at what's in store. Our in-house meteorologist from Intercontinental Exchange, Dave Margolin, is going to join me soon to reveal the forecast for the Thanksgiving Day parade and across the country, plus how you should prepare. And speaking of Thanksgiving, Macy's is here, as you see, to celebrate the opening bell ahead of its Thanksgiving Day parade in New York City. That also means that Santa's in the house. He and Macy's Chief Marketing Officer will join us a little bit later in the show. And of course, Turkey Day also delivers 3 servings of NFL action. We'll talk with an expert about what to expect when the players take the field and the league's strategy when it comes to this holiday season. Well, here at 11 Wall, investors are reacting to the latest Fed minutes yesterday, which could provide clues as to the central bank's next course of action when it comes to rate cuts. The minutes from early November's meeting did reveal that the Fed envisions further cuts at a gradual pace. Its next and final meeting this year is in mid-December. Well, the CME Fed Watch tool, which evaluates the market's expectation when it comes to Fed policy decisions, is pricing in about 2/3 of a chance of a 1/4 percentage point rate cut at the Fed's next meeting in December. We have relative calm here on Wall Street as the stock market is set to open for trade in just about 30 minutes time. For more on the biggest story shaking up Wall Street, I want to bring in Eddie Gifford. He's a financial advisor at Tactive. Eddie, it's great to see you this morning. Happy holidays to you and your team. And as we get started here, I want to take a look at the state of play, especially as today, even the day before the holiday, is going to be big on the economic front. What do you see?
Well, we're looking at everything, and everything feels good right now, and that's a good thing, because there's been this worry that's been lingering for a while, and that's typically a good thing when it comes to markets, but it can be too much of a good thing to where people just finally say, no, I'm out. And so in general, like, we're seeing like good feelings, but the issue is that we still run into the data that we've been up against all year. We run into the fact that, you know, inflation has been like the #1 and primary target by the Fed. Well, that recently ticked up for the first time in a long time. We're looking at jobs, which have been good, but they've been revised lower multiple times and appear to be slowing down. And then we look at housing, the thing that everybody has been saying, oh, it's going to go up forever. Well, hey, that was, new homes were just revised down. And so when we look at all that stuff, it does give us like cause for concern, or at least pause, and saying that, hey, like, the data isn't exactly showing up the way we want it to. It doesn't mean the market's going to go down, but it means that we should be paying attention to what's happening, because if housing stays at least stubborn, that's not good for inflation. If energy continues to rise and there's a lot of demand for energy, that's not good for inflation. And if inflation has 2 ticks up in a row, that could cause the pause to be like, hey, gradual is going to become nothing. And if gradual becomes nothing, we could see another 2022 all over again. And that's where the bond market and the stock market got beat up. So yeah, we're quietly and cautiously optimistic, but at the same time, we're ready just in case something breaks under the surface.
Interesting. So when it comes to the tactives, Eddie, what are you recommending your clients?
So, one thing is you got to lean into the trend. And so the trend has been up. We bought Bitcoin right before election day. We've owned the markets with the NASDAQ and S&P 500 for a while. And we're going to lean into that trend as long as that trend is there. Of course, in any given day, that trend can fizzle. And if that happens, that's where we need to have offsets in the portfolio to make sure that when things turn, we've got something that's working against us. I'm one of those rare advisors that says that we actually need to have red on the statement every quarter, because that means that we actually do have a diversified portfolio. So just making sure that anything we buy, we have a reason to sell it, and anything we buy, we have some type of offset in the portfolio. Those are the main things that we're always trying to do, regardless of the situation, because things happen. And as long as the data continues in the trajectory that it's on, we're sitting in a good spot. But as we know, when stuff happens, it happens suddenly. And it's kind of like that whole escalator up, elevator down thing. And we want to protect against that elevator down.
What is it about crypto, Eddie, that is attractive to your firm?
Well, crypto in general, I think that is very, very, very new, especially in the investor space when it comes to the institutional side of things. Obviously, retail has been pushing it for a long time, but when you look at kind of the foundation of crypto, which is Bitcoin, Bitcoin is very intriguing in general just because of the old school supply and demand story. Everything that we've ever learned when it comes to finance and economics, that, when I studied it in college, it was supply and demand is going to be the driver of return. And with Bitcoin, we have a finite number of Bitcoins. And so we know that over time, the supply and demand story will be strong. So right there, that makes us at least interested in including it in the portfolio. But when you take it a step further, the adoption of Bitcoin has been slow. And so although a lot of retail has been jumping in, institutions just got into the mix this year. And as we see more adoption, that should drive the price up also. And so when when a lot of people aren't using it and there's a finite number of coins and it's already doing well, and then people start to use it, even if it's not for like the original base case, which was, hey, a way to transact anywhere across the world, now people are thinking of it in terms of an investment. And because of that, we think that there's a lot of upside, albeit the volatility is a lot higher than most are used to. So that's the thing that really, really, I think, scares a lot of mom and pop and advisors in general, because a 10% move in a day is not unheard of. It's almost common.
Eddie, we have a lot to get to, of course, over the course of this next hour, including that market open. We'll check back in with Eddie just after stocks are open for trade. That's Eddie Gifford. He's a financial advisor.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, stay with us, because up next, our in-house meteorologist is going to give us the latest update on what sort of weather parade goers here at NYC should expect during Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Stay with us.
So, John, tell us a bit about the partnership you have with Santander and Openbank.
It's a Spanish man and it's a Spanish company. This is my only Spanish partnership. Santander has a long history with the game of golf, and being a professional golfer, it's a true honor to be a part of it. And then, well, we're here at the New York Stock Exchange for the opening, the soft launch of the new online bank here in the U.S., being Openbank.
Now, John, when deciding which brands you partner with, what factors do you consider?
I try to get brands that represent me in some kind of way, right? And trying to at least having the opportunity to partner with somebody from Spain, a family that grew up in northern Spain like myself, not the same city, but close enough, that has a close history with the game of golf. I thought it was a no-brainer, right? They've also been involved in other sports like Formula One and many others. I think that was an easy choice, right? But I think every brand I've had, I try to see what their expertise is, what their motto is, and what they portray to the world, right? And that's what I try to link myself with. So my image in itself, or what is the name John, is either uplifted by those brands or related to those brands, right? And I try to be picky. Luckily, I've been able to have some great partners to join with and keep on going on those ventures.
Now, Santander is growing in the U.S. market, which is a journey you yourself are familiar with. Do you see any parallels between your own experience in the U.S. and what Santander is doing today?
There is a difference when you're playing in different parts of the world. The golf courses are different, the setting is different, right? So to be as complete a player as you can be, you have to play in all different environments. And coming to the US is a massive one, right? 3 of the 4 big majors are played in the US, all the big events are played in the US. So being able to come here.
Welcome back to NYSE TV Live, everyone. I'm Kristen Scholler here in studio. Well, in about 20 minutes, Macy's is going to celebrate the opening bell ahead of its 98th Thanksgiving Day Parade on Thursday. Before that, we do want to get a weather update from Intercontinental Exchange's in-house meteorologist, Dave Margolin. Dave, it's great to see you as always, especially ahead of the holiday tomorrow. What can our viewers expect if they are planning to make that parade?
Hi, Kristen. Thank you. Well, it looks like, unfortunately, for portions of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, especially into southern New England, it's going to be a pretty stormy and cold Thanksgiving. We're seeing a low-pressure system that's going to be moving through the region, and it's going to bring a lot of cold rain, first into Pennsylvania and New Jersey, probably for the first half of Thanksgiving Day, and then move it into like the Boston, Connecticut area across the second half of the day. And north and west of those cities, in the suburbs, and especially across some of the mountain areas like the Poconos and Catskills, we're even going to see some snow.
Okay, good to know. Might impact some people's cooking schedules if they're planning on being outside. Dave, what exactly is behind the weather pattern this time of year tomorrow on Turkey Day?
Well, actually, this system represents the leading edge of the coldest air mass that we've seen so far this season. So after the passage of this storm, although it's going to be a lot quieter in terms of wintry weather, it's going to be a lot colder. So for the Northeast, most of the major markets, we're going to see probably into next week, high temperatures in the 30s and 40s, nighttime lows in the teens and 20s, and even colder as you get out to the Midwest, like cities like Chicago and Detroit. For most of next week, probably high temperatures will remain below freezing with nighttime lows in the teens.
All right, good time to bundle up, maybe take advantage of some of those Black Friday and Cyber Monday sales. Dave, based on what you're telling me, give me a rundown for the rest of the country as well in terms of what everyone else can expect outside of the parade goers this Thanksgiving holiday.
Well, thankfully, outside of the Northeast Mid-Atlantic area, it's going to be, in terms of wintry weather and rain and such, it's going to be relatively quiet. But again, we're going to see some of the coldest air mass, coldest air of the season for most of the country here. And it looks like it's going to be locked in for at least 5 or 10 days.
Interesting. And in terms of what else we can expect, as we do expect temperatures to drop, Dave, what is on your radar?
Well, I think the big question, especially in the commodity and financial markets, is how long is this cold weather going to last, right? And right now, as we talked about that, it looks like, it's going to be persistent for the next 10 days or so. As we get into the 11, 15-day period and beyond, it looks like the model guidance that we look at is kind of split on what's going to happen. We're seeing some of the guidance suggest a warming pattern as we get into the middle of December, while some of the other guidance, mainly the ECMWF guidance that the meteorologists look at, suggests it's going to be a colder pattern. So right now, it looks like, if you're thinking longer term into the middle of the month, it looks like right now a lot of uncertainty in terms of what direction we're going to be moving into.
Dave, holiday plans? What's on tap for you? Are you going to be outside in the rain in the Northeast here?
We're going to be right here. And if I'm lucky, I'm just outside the city. If I'm lucky, I'm going to try to find a little bit of time to sneak a little bit north and west so I can do some snow chasing.
Ah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Dave Margolin, great to see you as always. He is our in-house meteorologist at Intercontinental Exchange, the parent company of the stock exchange.
Thank you.
All right, well, stay with us because as the TSA expects a record number of travelers to fly over Thanksgiving, I'll check in with the managing editor of The Point Sky for everything you need to know to get to your destination. Stay with us.
Since we last talked, I know you have a major announcement. You just made the largest deal in the ASPM space. So talk to me.
Application Security Posture Management market, yes.
Yes. And I understand that it's with an NYSE listed company. We can't say the name.
Fortune 10.
Yes, Fortune 10 company. Tell me about this deal.
First and foremost, this is a deal that changes startups, okay? And we're super, super excited about it. And why they decided to partner with us for 3 years, very large deal, was technology that we developed. We actually helped them automate all their security risk assessment questionnaires, build a real-time software inventory, and prioritize, remediate, and prevent risks before they get to the cloud.
Let's talk about how Apiro recently launched the risk detection at the design phase. Can you talk to me more about this and how earlier detection in the software development of these kind of problems will help enhance the security outcome for businesses?
Based on NIST, the cost of fixing a defect at runtime when it reaches to the cloud, 100x more than in the design phase. So what we did, we developed our own private LLM model that scans every feature requests that gets into the development lifecycle. And automatically, we generate threat modeling, stories, mitigations before one line of code is written.
I do want to talk to you about a new product that I know that you are going to be unveiling soon. Can you tell me more about it?
I can't share all the details, but I will say the following. We're using the Apiro deep code analysis technology to identify our software architecture. The next phase is to visualize your software architecture in a very, very interesting way. It's like a living and breathing organism. It changes every day. So you need to visualize it to help developers write.
Welcome back to NYSE TV Live, everyone. I'm Kristen Scholler here in studio. Earlier this week, the TSA announced that it is expecting a record number of flyers during the Thanksgiving holiday. The agency anticipates it'll screen 18.3 million people starting yesterday through next Monday. That would be a 6% gain compared to the same time a year ago. Well, with a high number of travelers not just taking flight this week, but of course throughout this entire holiday season, many will be looking to cash in their points and miles for lucrative rewards. So joining me now for more on this is Clint Henderson, managing editor for The Points Guy. Clint, thank you so much for joining, of course, especially ahead of the busy holiday season. And I want to hear from you what your expectations are this Thanksgiving holiday.
So I feel like we're in pretty good shape. The airlines, the airports, TSA, they're all staffed up back to where they need to be to handle the crowds. But we are expecting record-breaking numbers. In fact, TSA head told me last week that they could hit a record high of more than 3 million people screened the Sunday after Thanksgiving. So, but he also says they're ready. So fingers crossed that the airlines and the airports can handle the crowds. The one area I'm really watching closely is air traffic control. There's still a shortage of ATC workers, so that's one area I'm really focused on this week.
Interesting. Now, Clint, walk our viewers through any challenges that might be posed. I know you mentioned, obviously, it's going to be a high traffic time, but anything else our viewers need to know in terms of navigating properly so they make sure that they can get to their destination and on time?
Yeah, I would just give yourself some extra time this week. Remember, you're going to be traveling with a lot of people who are infrequent travelers. It slows the security lines down. Of course, at The Points Guy, we recommend things like TSA pre-check, getting clear, global entry, but that's not going to happen this week for you. So, but enroll in those things for the future. Have the airline app installed on your phone. You want to make sure you're able to rebook yourself or even get a cheap upgrade offer. Remember that the airline apps now show you your flight arrival times, whether your flight's on time. Sometimes that's how you get Wi-Fi and entertainment. So you want to have that airline app installed on your phone and just get to the airport a little bit earlier than normal.
We've been hearing of shortages, certainly in the travel space for years now, but also strikes of late. What are the airports and particular carriers, perhaps, that our viewers should be prepared to navigate on that front?
So there's been a lot of labor actions, but no disruptive strikes. So even one we saw this week in Charlotte didn't end up disrupting travel too much. So right now it's mostly to raise public awareness of labor issues and workers complaining of low pay, but we have not seen a lot of disruptions. Untrue in places like Europe where there has been some disruptions, but that's usually a summertime impact. And so I'm not seeing any reason for concern this week.
Certainly it's going to be a busy stretch, but I want to hear more about the expectations for international travel as well, Clint, for anyone who is preparing to go perhaps across seas.
So this is one of my favorite times to travel overseas. First of all, the US dollar is strong, so your dollar goes a lot further than it used to in places like Asia and in Europe. I would say that we've seen record levels of demand. People really want to travel internationally, and they are, but this is a great time of year to travel because business travelers are not on the road this week, which means prices are lower. And it's also off season for most tourists. Unless you're going to a Christmas market that's really crowded, it's a great time to travel.
For people who are taking extended trips, Clint, parking at the airport is a major thing that they need to plan for as well. What are your tips on that front?
So first of all, airport parking lots do sell out. And so you don't want to be driving around looking for a space and freaking out about what to do. So what we recommend at the Points Guys, register ahead of time. So a lot of times, not only will you guarantee yourself a parking space, but you can get discounts if you register in advance. Most airports have programs like this. Better to be safe than sorry in these situations.
And in terms of budgeting for the holidays, Clint, is there a magic number that you think our viewers need to prepare for in terms of what it is going to cost them to travel?
So, like I said, traveling internationally, the US dollar being strong helps you out a lot. I would look for deals on airfare. The one area that you're going to have to budget for is hotels. We've seen a lot of price inflation for hotel rates. This is where having a stash of points and miles can really come in handy. You know, things like Chase Ultimate Rewards points, you can transfer to programs like Hyatt and get really good value for points for booking hotels. So that's my biggest recommendation is find a cheap flight and then make sure you're checking hotel prices before you go, because that's where it's going to really bust the budget.
What are the pros and cons of traveling by air versus on the roads this time of year?
Well, gas prices have come down, so that's helpful. Obviously, it's convenient to have a car, but there's no shortage of rental cars. So if flying is easier and faster, I'm always a big fan of flying over driving, but that's a really big personal preference. I will say that I would go by price if it was up to me.
Clint Henderson, great to have you on the show, especially as people prepare to take to the roads and the skies. Clint is the managing editor at the Points Guide.
Happy holidays.
All right, well, and another story that we've covered on NYSE TV Live, investing platform eToro launched right here in New York last week. And our Judy Shaw recently sat down with the CEO, Yoni Asiya, to discuss how the platform is benefiting in its 35 million plus user ecosystem. Take a look.
Yoni, welcome to Floor Talk. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
So Yoni, I want to start off by talking about eToro. Tell me about the company and your user base.
Sure, we founded eToro in 2007 with the vision of opening the global markets for everyone to trade and invest in a simpler and transparent way. Today we have 37 million registered users into our social investment network, where our customers can collaborate with one another. They can trade stocks, crypto assets, as well as commodities, indices, ETFs, currencies, and constantly adding more assets to the platform. And the unique part of eToro, they can actually see the performance of everybody in the network and then automatically copy the best performing investors on the network.
Now, the social component you mentioned, it's a first of its kind. So tell me, why did you decide to put a focus there?
I've always been passionate about capital markets. I started trading when I was 13, and I always remembered how important it is to find people who are like-minded investors, who are passionate about capital markets. You don't always have them around you physically. With the internet, with social networking, you're able to find on eToro people who want to trade and invest like you, whether you're interested in crypto assets, whether you're interested in specifically growth stocks and tech stocks, or sometimes people love like renewable energy stocks. So within the network, you can actually learn from others, and that helps you become a more successful investor.
And Yoni, why is the mission to help everyone gain access to investing, particularly in a responsible way, important to you?
We started eToro with a mission to help people access the markets. It's always been hard when we started eToro, no mobile, no social, almost no real time. And what we wanted is really to improve the user experience for people both to access the markets as well as to learn about the markets. And why is that important? And I think now, more than the entire history of humanity, people understand that just leaving your money in cash has inflation, and when you invest in the markets over time, you continuously generate wealth, and I think that's important for people, it's important for everybody to take part of this beautiful thing, which is capital markets and the ability to become part of ownership in the companies you love. So I really believe in capital markets, and I want to see more people be passionate about it and take part of the markets.
Finally, Yoni, tell me what's in store for eToro in 2025?
We're very excited, one, about where the markets are headed right now. It's very interesting sort of to see the super Fourier cycle coming into effect, and very excited about new technologies, specifically AI, and how can we utilize the amazing progress in AI to help our customers make better decisions. Today with AI, you can, with a fingertip, analyze financial statements of companies. You can analyze actually on eToro to find people more similar to you, to understand what they're doing. So everything that you used to have a lot of either people working for you or analysts or a lot of spreadsheets are now getting simpler. And it is our roles to give better, simpler tools for our customers to become more successful.
Well, Yoni, fantastic to have you on Floor Talk. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thanks to Judy Shaw for that interview. And don't go anywhere, because up next we will have that opening bell right after the break.
Brett, we're here at the New York Stock Exchange. Brett, we're here at the New York Stock Exchange. You're here with the Startup Challenge by Snowflake.
Yes.
So tell me, what were your key takeaways from this competition, and how do you see these insights influencing Big Geo's journey forward?
It was incredible being down there for the Snowflake Startup Competition. It was really encouraging to see where they're going with their ecosystem, and what they're doing with native apps specifically is where we're kind of going to market with them. And the support network for me was the biggest takeaway. It was once we met with them and we were like, we're going to work together, it was just everybody piled in, and we got the job done. So I was very encouraged, and I know Brent can speak for that as well. It was knowing that we picked the right ecosystem to go to market with. Snowflake was that for us.
Now, Brent, the data center and cloud landscape is evolving rapidly. How does Big Geo's technology align with the future of data centers? And what role do you envision for your company in this transformation?
It's an incredible technology for the data center space. I mean, we're having these conversations on a daily basis with some of the world's largest hyperscalers. Our technology sits right up against, it's built on first principles solutions from the ground up to increase performance at the data center. So we're looking at this technology as a way to reduce the amount of electricity consumption for data centers when it comes to geospatial performance, which is vastly becoming or quickly becoming one of the largest computing workloads at the data centers. So it's a very important technology to align with our hyperscaler partners and give them more, save them on electricity so they can spend that on artificial intelligence. So,
all right, now, Brett, we're here at the New York Stock Exchange.
It's
You're
awesome.
on the trading floor.
It's awesome. I've seen all the movies.
Well, tell me, how does it feel to be here? And how does this experience align with Big Geo's goals and vision?
Well, first of all, it's great.
Welcome back to NYSE TV Live, everyone. I'm Kristen Scholler here in studio at the Stock Exchange. And in just a moment, Santa's going to be on that opening bell podium to ring, of course, the market action opening of trade. Santa's no stranger to the Stock Exchange, though. In fact, today is the 16th time that Santa has helped Macy's celebrate the opening or closing bell in celebration of its Thanksgiving Day parade. Even though Santa delivers presents at night, he's more of a morning person, it turns out, here at the NYSE. It's the 13th time that Santa is participating in the opening bell. Well, Macy's has been celebrating the parade at the Stock Exchange for nearly 2 decades, first ringing the bell in conjunction with the event in 2005. Santa first came down from the North Pole to partake in the festivities in 2007. And as for the 98th Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, here's what you need to know. For the second year in a row, the parade's going to kick off at 8:30 a.m. Eastern instead of 9 a.m. And this year's parade will feature 34 floats, 22 balloons. Newcomers include SpongeBob SquarePants. You're taking a live look there at Santa on that opening bell podium. Let's listen in. A lot of holiday cheer up there on the podium, of course, as we kick off the trading day. Full trading day today, but a reminder to our viewers, the markets will be closed tomorrow for Thanksgiving and actually an early out on Friday, but we will still be broadcasting to you on Friday. All right, rejoining me now, as promised, is Eddie Gifford, financial advisor at Tactiv. Eddie, it's great to see you. We're off to the races. Relative calm here, of course, before Thanksgiving Day tomorrow. I want to get a sense from you, as you look at the data, what the state of the consumer is.
Well, the consumer seems cautious. So when we look at like what's been happening with inflation in general, and then we've got obviously PCE up today. What we've noticed is that at least for the last few months, the consumer's been cautious. A lot of the spending has been driven by debt, unfortunately. So those are the things that have really stood out. Now, on the back end of the election, a lot of the people that we've been talking to, they seem more confident. I don't know if that's going to translate into spending into the holiday season or into Black Friday that we know is upon us. But those are the metrics that we're going to be paying close attention to over the coming weeks to kind of see like, okay, do we have more confidence, or are we really going to start leaning in again? Because consumer sentiment still has been getting revised down. It still has not been what we expect from an expectations or from a current conditions standpoint. So that is the primary focus, because at the end of the day, if the consumer doesn't spend, then the businesses aren't profitable. And so that has to be the focus.
It's interesting, Eddie, of course, as retail earnings wind down. We have heard from several major retailers, including department stores, and it does show, in fact, that last quarter consumers were willing to spend specifically on items like clothes and shoes. They might have pulled back on electronics, but certainly they are deal hungry and wanting to capitalize on that. And so I think that's a takeaway collectively that we can view from some of our NYSE listed companies here. When it comes to growth and your forecasts on growth ahead, how much does the Fed's rate path factor into that as we await that December decision?
Well, I think the rate path is less important than how the bond market perceives that rate path, because the rate path in and of itself, that helps consumer lines, that helps home equity lines, that helps those types of things. But what it doesn't help is it doesn't help the car loans, it doesn't help the mortgages, the fixed mortgages, it doesn't help those things. And so we need the bond market to be convinced by the Fed that things are getting better. And if we see that and we start seeing the long end of the curve start to come down, that's where we really potentially see some acceleration on the growth side of things. We just don't want it to happen too fast, right? They're playing this Goldilocks game right now, and we got this teeter-totter thing going on. And if all of a sudden the Fed has to cut rapidly because something broke, well, that means that we're in recession. But if the Fed can cut gradually and the bond market can build confidence in the Fed over that same timeline, that means that we can have another great year next year.
Mm-hmm. And what would you categorize as a great year, both for the economy and for stocks in terms of metrics?
Well, it's hard to compete with the last 2 years because we've had these 25+% years back to back on the S&P 500. So I think that if we get anything over 10%, 10 to 15% on the S&P, that would be a good year. From an economic standpoint, we just want to see that inflation continuing to fall. We want to see GDP kind of heading in the right direction. Of course, there probably are going to be a few abruptions there from the standpoint that the administration is planning on making some adjustments, and change usually makes things go a little bit backward before it goes forward. But when we look at it from like a long view standpoint, we think that just kind of being a little bit ahead in the economy at the end of next year, and then like a 10 to 15% move up in the S&P 500 over next year, we would consider that a good year.
Come January, of course, January 20th, a new administration will be in the White House, and we saw a red sweep, of course, after Election Day. How does that factor into your thesis?
Well, it definitely factors in from the standpoint that we're going to become a lot more choosy when it comes to investment and focus more on sectors like energy and even specific stocks, from the standpoint that when you're all red or all blue, the broad market actually doesn't perform as well, but certain sectors do. And so we'll be paying closer attention to certain sectors that tend to do well with a red administration. We do think that because it's already, and because there are some potential big changes on the horizon, volatility is still not going to go away, not quite yet.
You know, I do want to ask about geopolitics. Eddie, we started the show, of course, with the news that we heard from President Biden yesterday. Oil prices, we know, are closely aligned with what we see happening on the international front as it relates to geopolitics. What do our viewers need to know on that front?
Well, I mean, the less conflict, the better, obviously. If we can get some peace across the board, that's going to be good because oil prices will continue to stay low or even fall further, which is good for the inflation story. Of course, if conflict escalates, that's when we start to see a little bit of fear and that's when we see oil prices rise. And honestly, like, it's been interesting. That's where we've seen Bitcoin rise pretty rapidly when conflict seems inevitable. So looking at oil or looking at like Bitcoin as a hedge against conflict and also as a hedge against inflation, but then also just understanding that, like, we don't want those. We don't like it when we have to have those hedges in the portfolio because that means the other stuff is not looking so good.
Eddie Gifford, financial advisor at Tactive. Eddie, great to see you on the show today. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, well, the NFL is going to be in the spotlight on Turkey Day, and find out what football fans should expect up next.
What you need is the commitment of all the employees that it's a priority, that we value culture, that it's a differentiator, that it helps us better support our partners and our customers. And I think all 20,000 people truly believe that. And so we're focused on it. But you have to be willing to change too.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's always one of the challenging parts. When you think you have a great culture, it's easy to say, okay, let's just not break it.
Yeah.
But if you just say that, you say, let's just not break it, okay, then you're not evolving, right? And the world around us is changing every day. And you have to respond and react to that. And that means you have to do that for the business and respond to those external dynamics, but it means you have to do it for the culture as well.
Yeah.
You know, we've been through a very difficult few years as a country, and that means that you need to support your employees differently given those circumstances. But I'll tell you, it's really important to listen to that cohort because their needs and the pressure that they're under is very different.
Yeah.
And that's where I think, you know, we add a lot of value. And we add a lot of value to those partners, even outside of the credit program. Like, we can actually help them on other topics,
Mm-hmm.
you know, HR, finance, you know, other things that we do where we have a more established process will help our partners. And we do that just in the spirit of partnership. But it means a lot to that group because they do have a totally different set of demands. And one of the things we did in the reorganization is we realized that a lot of what they need and a lot of what we needed to do to support our partners was common across industries. The customer experience has never been more important than it is right now. There is very little friction.
Welcome back to NYSE TV Live, everyone. I'm Kristen Scholler here in studio. We are open for trade on this day before the Thanksgiving holiday. And as we talk Turkey Day, something's most synonymous, of course, with the holiday is, yes, the parade, turkey, and football. In fact, 3 games are on the slate this Thursday, and here's some fun facts as we start this segment. The Detroit Lions, they're going to play the Chicago Bears in the first game of the triple header. They've hosted a game on Thanksgiving every year, it turns out, since 1934, outside of during the Second World War. The other team that always plays on Thanksgiving, that's the Dallas Cowboys. They've been in action during the holiday nearly every year since 1966. And this year they'll be hosting rival New York Giants. Well, the Dolphins traveled to Lambeau Field for the final leg of the triple header. This primetime game relatively new, and the NFL first added that additional game back in 2006. Joining me now with more is Keith Irizarry. He's a host on MLB Network, NHL Network, and ESPN, as well as a contributor on SNY. Keith, thank you so much for joining ahead of what's going to be a busy holiday period. as well as the football games that are on the menu. So let's kick it off with the Lions here, tied for the best record in the NFL. They've never made it to the Super Bowl, though. Do you think that can change this year?
Hello, Kristen, and happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, I look at this Detroit Lions team, and you have to be excited. They took a step forward last year under Dan Campbell. This year, they have arguably the best offense in all of the NFL. Jared Goff is now thrust his name into the MVP conversation. Jahmyr Gibbs is fourth in rushing yards, becoming one of the better runners in the NFL. David Montgomery, when he's healthy, is a dynamic duo partner of in this backfield. And then you kind of look at the wide receivers too, Amon-Ra St. Brown and the rest of them, they're good. Defense is awesome. Also, jump around the NFC. I'm not that afraid of the Niners this year. The Vikings, the Packers, the NFC South. The Eagles could stand in the Lions' way, but Kristen, I would say this. I think this is the year for the Lions to get to the Super Bowl.
Oh, I like that. I think a lot of Lions fans watching across the country, Keith, are going to be happy to hear that as well. I want to talk some of the QB action. I know you're a fantasy football expert as well. We've seen a lot of action, that is, when it comes to contracts on the QB space this particular season. How dependent is this league on the quarterback?
So I think there's a lot of ways to look at this. From a fantasy standpoint, actually, running backs kind of become more important for your rosters there. But in the real NFL, the best teams have the best QBs. The Kansas City Chiefs have won back-to-back titles. Guess what? Patrick Mahomes is their quarterback. The Bills are one of the best teams in the NFL. Guess what? Josh Allen is their QB. The Baltimore Ravens are a team that people think could make a run to the Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson is a back-to-back MVP guy. And then, of course, we just mentioned the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff has been fantastic. So I still think the NFL is very dependent on the quarterback. And I'll go even further, Kristen. The last 11 NFL MVPs, they've been quarterbacks. It goes to show you that the league loves their quarterbacks.
Absolutely. Let's head down south, Keith, to Miami. The Dolphins' fast-paced offense, it's better this year, but they've won 3 straight games. Do you think that the playoffs are a possibility for the Dolphins and their fans?
You know what? I'll say yes, and here's why. So Tua Tagovailoa went out with the horrific concussion earlier in the year. A lot of people wondered whether or not Tua would come back. He's back. They haven't lost since he's under center. Now, Thanksgiving's going to be tough. Tua and the Dolphins. Tua is 0-7 when it's 33 degrees or less, freezing basically. Guess what? The temperatures are supposed to be 33 degrees or less in Green Bay on Thanksgiving night. So we'll see if they can turn things around there. But for the Dolphins, they've got the Jets on their docket twice. Mm-hmm. That could be 2 wins. You got the Texans who've been up and down. You got the Niners who have been up and down. I think the Miami Dolphins could make a run to get into the postseason. And once they're there, their offense is quite dynamic.
Very quickly, Keith, the Raiders Chiefs are going to play in the NFL's second ever Black Friday game. How successful do you think an annual Black Friday game can be, and what's your expectation for Friday?
Kristen, I love the Black Friday game. I love a standalone game. Last year you had the Jets and the Dolphins, a rivalry matchup. They're doing it again with another Raiders-Chiefs rivalry matchup. When you put one singular game on, all the eyes are on that game. I think the NFL is nailing this.
All right, Keith Irizarry, great to have you. Wish we had more time, Keith. Happy football viewing this holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, well, after the break, my colleague Judy Shaw is going to be on the trading floor with a very special guest. You saw him on the podium. Stay with us.
So we're not following a cuisine, we're actually really leverage the culinary art form of churrasco, which is very traditional Southern Brazilian cuisine. We've been doing it for 45 years. So you're right, we only have 72 restaurants in America, but 96 globally. But our whole essence of our brand is about scaling the authentic culinary art form that we know our guests love around the world.
When it comes to cuisine, there's many different trends out there, right? Especially as people are more health conscious these days. So how are you keeping up with these trends, but still being true to your brand?
What we love about it is everything we serve is nutrient dense and good for you. So it's up to you and your diet and how you like to dine, but we've done that for 45 years. What's exciting is our innovation around that is even getting better. We just rolled out whole branzino seafood. So we're just now beginning the fresh seafood platform, and we're really excited about that.
Ooh, that sounds delicious.
Yeah,
we're going to have to try it when
We
you
will.
open up your new restaurant,
That's
just
right.
a block or two away?
That's right.
Yeah, talk to me about when that's going to be opening.
So we're opening by probably like middle of December, but it's World Trade Center. Really excited. So it's our second one in Manhattan. We have one in Midtown. It's 18,000 square foot. The one in the World Trade Center is ground level. It will be about 5,000 square foot. So really excited to open that. We can't wait to host you there.
Now, you've experienced significant growth in recent years. We talked about over 90 restaurants worldwide, over 70 here in the United States. What would you attribute your success to, and how do you think you're going to continue this momentum?
We scale our culture first by really investing in our people. A lot of training, because this is an art form that is unique to us. We're the category leader in it, and we are scaling it globally. So when you think about how to do it well, to keep the authenticity, we focus on our human capital pipeline first. Now we have visibility of 3 years of sites ahead of us because we have 3 years of people, I would say talent ready to do it.
Welcome back to NYSE TV Live, everyone. I'm Kristen Scholler here in studio. Well, earlier, Macy's celebrated the opening bell ahead of Thursday's Thanksgiving Day parade. And now I want to send things down to my colleague Judy Shaw, who is on the trading floor with more. Judy, good morning.
Good morning, Kristen. As you mentioned, Macy's rang the opening bell a short while ago to celebrate the 98th annual Thanksgiving Day Parade, a bell that I always look forward to every year. And I have Sharon Otterman. She is the Chief Marketing Officer at Macy's joining me today. Sharon, it's wonderful to have you.
So nice to be here. So excited that we're about to have a parade tomorrow.
About to have a parade, 98th annual.
Yeah.
So every year it's always bigger, it's always better. Tell me, what's new and exciting this year?
Oh my God. Well, we have 17 balloons and 27 floats and 700 clowns and a bit of nostalgia and a whole bunch of new, and then Santa Claus.
And then Santa Claus. But before Santa Claus, there's lots of performances. Tell me more about that.
We have marching bands coming from all across the country. We have star-studded performances. We have something for everyone to really get everyone excited and ready for the holiday season.
Now, there is so much that goes into this large-scale events. You have numerous performances, lots of volunteers.
Yes.
So tell me, when do you begin planning and what goes into this?
Well, it starts 18 months prior. There is such a talented group of people that put this together all year round. It's their full-time job. Plus, we have 5,000 volunteers that help us to make all of this come to life. So it's really a lot of planning, a lot of preparation, a lot of rehearsals to lead us to this day.
Sharon, tell me, how does a parade reflect Macy's brand and your connection to the holiday season?
We like to say we're more than a store, we're a story. And we kick off the beginning of every season, whether it's the summer season with the fireworks or the holiday season with the parade. This is how we get everyone excited for the holidays and realize that we have customers that have needs during the holidays and we get to serve them. It's been a tradition in my house my entire life, and it's just a great way to be able to kick off the season.
And Sharon, where is the best place to view the parade? And for those who are not able to view in person, what should they do?
Well, I think every seat is the best seat. I started out as a kid on the Upper West Side and loved the beginning of the parade. There's so much excitement down by Columbus Circle when the parade makes the turn. It's like nothing else you've seen. And then you get down to 34th Street and there's all these amazing performances. But then you can also be cozy in your pajamas on the couch on Thanksgiving morning and enjoying it on NBC. And that will be the only place, NBC and Peacock, or it's the only place that you can watch the parade.
Now, Sharon, I love your personal story when it comes to the parade. So before you were even a CMO of Macy's,
Yes.
You had a real connection to Macy's and the parade. I loved hearing your story upstairs. Tell our viewers about your story.
Yeah, so I started going to the parade when I was very little. It was a tradition for my family. My dad has always gone to the parade when he was a little boy, and it was important that he took my sister and I. So we'd get up very early in the morning and we would go down to the city and sit on the cold sidewalk and waiting for hours and hours. And the minute the first balloon and Tom the Turkey came the corner, it was just like magic to me and worth all the wait. And I continued to go every year as a kid. And then as an adult, my sister and I continued the tradition and really honored my parents' memory from being able to go and hang out together there. And then when we had kids, we brought our kids as well too. And so this is the first year we're not all sitting together because our kids are even in the parade. So it's just full circle and so exciting. I can't wait for tomorrow.
Very exciting. From watching the parade to now your children being in the parade. Now we know every parade ends with Santa Claus. And guess who we have? Santa Claus, please come and join me here.
Hello, Judy. I know that you've been good.
I have been good.
Every year, Macy's invites me to come from the North Pole to join the parade, and it is one of my most favorite days of the year because I always say there's nothing more worthwhile than making children happy, and during the holidays, we're all kids at heart. No matter what you're doing, always remember that this still is the most wonderful time of the year.
It is indeed, Santa, and we always love having you here to celebrate with Macy's.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a tradition.
It is a tradition. Okay, one final word to all the boys and girls out there.
Always remember, boys and girls, sometimes Santa can't bring you everything you want, but I'll surprise you. Always remember that you already have the best gift of all. You know what that is. Your family, right? And on Christmas Eve, which is the night before Christmas, leave me a cookie. Have a wonderful holiday.
All right, well, we will definitely be leaving lots of cookies, Santa Claus.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas,
everyone.
all. Kristen, back to you in the studio.
All right, Judy, you are definitely on Santa's good list this year. That was a lot of fun. Judy shot down there on the floor with Macy's and Santa, of course, after the opening bell. And while Macy's rang the opening bell this morning, the Salvation Army is going to celebrate the closing bell here at the Stock Exchange as it starts its red kettle bell ringing season. So joining me now with more is Major Marcus Jugenheimer, COO of the Salvation Army, Greater New York Division. Thank you so much for joining. We're so happy to have you at the Stock Exchange.
Thank you for having us.
What does this season mean to you?
The Christmas at the Salvation Army is a busy season of serving our neighbors in need, and also a busy season of resourcing the Salvation Army's mission and ministry throughout the upcoming year. So it really has a lot to do with our red kettles that are out across the country on streets here in New York City, in front of shopping centers, in the public transportation system. And it's a great way to support the Salvation Army as we support our neighbors in need.
When people, of course, donate during this particular season, how do you see that money go to good use?
I like to say when people put money in the kettle, they should expect change. We're not going to give them money back at the kettle, but there's going to be change in the lives of individuals who are coming to the Salvation Army seeking help and hope. And that's why we are there, so that anyone coming in, whether they're food insecure, whether they need housing, the Salvation Army is there to help lift them up in their time of need.
And talk to me more for our viewers, of course, New Yorkers, residents, but also tourists who are going to be here in the city this holiday season, where they can find these bells.
If you're walking around the streets of Manhattan, around Rockefeller Center, Fifth Avenue, anywhere that you might be walking, you're going to see that iconic red kettle with the ringing bell, and encourage people to give generously as the need continues to grow each year.
Oftentimes we see one just outside of the Stock Exchange, down here in Lower Manhattan on Wall Street. How long of a fixture has that been there?
The Salvation Army started the bell ringing 133 years ago, and it only took a few years to go from San Francisco, where the first kettle was, across the country. And so this location on Wall Street, certainly over 125 years.
Mm-hmm. You'll be on the podium, I assume, later on, of course, to celebrate the closing bell today. What is your message to our viewers this time of year?
The message, this is a time of giving. We give gifts to our family, to our friends, and we also need to remember those in our communities who are finding the struggle of determining whether to pay the rent, pay the utilities, or put food on the table. And so the need is real.
Yeah.
And we encourage people to give generously to the Salvation Army or to a charity of their choice that is making the difference in the lives of individuals.
What is on tap for the Salvation Army this Thanksgiving holiday tomorrow?
So we start off, of course, with the ringing of the closing bell, and so excited to be part of that once again right here at the New York Stock Exchange. And then tomorrow, during halftime of the Dallas Cowboys and New York Giants game in AT&T AT&T Stadium. There will be the National Kettle Kickoff, and always an exciting event there with the Dallas Cowboys. And then on Monday evening, for the first time ever, we will be lighting up the Empire State Building in red and white in honor of the Salvation Army Kettle effort.
That'll be a big game indeed, and certainly an icon, I think, for the Salvation Army and what you'll be doing for the Empire State Building really across the entire country. Is there anything different this holiday season that you can tell us about?
Well, I think with the Kettle effort, there are new opportunities for digital giving, whether it's a tap to pay, just ways to support the mission here in New York City. We provided over 9.8 million meals this past year, over 200,000 nights of shelter, and the new, I guess, is just the reality that with inflation, with so many things impacting our city and communities across the country, the need for the Salvation Army services continues to grow, and the need for the support of our generous donors as well.
It's so true. We are so happy and honored to have you here at the Stock Exchange, of course, to kick off this holiday season. That's Major Marcus Jugenheimer, COO of the Salvation Army for the Greater New York Division. Have a wonderful closing bell.
Thank you. You as well.
All right. Well, it is a very special day. It is the day before Thanksgiving. And we want to wish a very happy birthday to our head of content, media partnerships, and distribution, Joe Benaroche, here at the New York Stock Exchange. From the entire NYSE Media Network team, cheers to Joe on this very special day. We are thankful for him today and every day as this coincides with the holiday season. Happy birthday, Joe. All right, quickly, let's take a look at the stock market. Relative calm here, of course, before some of the busyness and stormy weather that we expect in the skies here on the East Coast. You're taking a live look at the major indexes, and we are right within record highs. That's going to do it for today's coverage on NYSE TV Live. Everyone, thank you for watching. As always, I'm Kristen Scholler. Have a great day and a very happy Thanksgiving.
In life, I'm reminded that it's not about the destination, it is truly about the journey.
My pleasure to greet you today from the center of the U.S. capital markets here at the New York Stock Exchange.
I want to just take a minute and not just talk to the people that are in the room, but I want to speak to the rest of the team around the globe. These are people that made this happen, and I know that there is no way we would be here if it wasn't for you.
Everyone at Flutter is proud to join such a distinguished list of companies on this great stock exchange.
Not many people get to do something big in this world, and we get to do something truly special.
This is such a wonderful place to both look back and look forward. Look how far we have come. I'm so optimistic about what lies ahead. It has been a privilege to be with you.